Hello and welcome to the I Create Daily podcast. I'm Leora Alderson.
And I'm Devani Alderson. We are the mother-daughter co-founders of the I Create Daily brand.
We are passionate about encouraging positivity, creativity, and productivity while bringing you information and resources that support your creative aspirations.
I Create Daily is for creators in every genre of creating, from musicians to writers, crafters to inventors, bloggers to entrepreneurs. So if you're into creating anything, this podcast has something for you.
So tell us, what would support you most in your journey? You can reach us at creators@icreatedaily.com.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Hello and welcome to another coffee break episode on the I Create Daily podcast, a movement for creators serious about their work. I am Devani.
And I'm Leora.
And today we're talking about a topic which we have touched on several times within the I Create Daily for Creators community and on our email list. If you're not a part of either of those, we'll have links below. But it's the topic of managing social media for other people, for other groups, for other businesses, for other communities, as a way to earn income while you work on your own art, your own crafts, whatever your side hustle or business idea is, as a way of earning income, freelancing, and connecting and networking with other people. So we're going to cover some of the benefits and how to jump into becoming a freelance social media marketer. And you can think, if that sounds really professional and like, oh, you're not sure where to start, think of it as being a host of a conversation, being a host for conversations in communities that you're already interested in or businesses that you already like. So yes, that's the topic for today.
So you can become a social media manager for any of the social platforms that you prefer. The best place to start is with the social media platform that you enjoy the most, where you spend the most time. So when we recently brought up this conversation or this topic in the I Create Daily for Creators Facebook group, there were a number of people who were interested who had no idea that you could actually earn money doing what it is that so many people do just for fun, for their hobby. And that is chatting on social media and connecting with other people, joining conversations and contributing content, information, help, that sharing, that sort of thing. And you can. So here's the thing. There are brands of all sizes, but especially pages that have gotten to a million Facebook members or 100,000 or more, or whatever, who those who might have a brand as a coach, and they may only have 10,000, but they have a higher level of program, and so they have the revenue that allows them to outsource some of the management of some of their social content. Many entrepreneurs would fall into that category. Doctors, lawyers, doctors' offices, as well as what would be some other examples? Websites, brands like e-commerce brands, but basically anything that you're interested in. So this is the thing. We see so many people spending time just for fun, sharing and talking and chatting on Facebook. And if those people have jobs that they love and don't need any extra money in their lives, that's fine. But if it is that that's you and you would love to earn some extra money doing what you're enjoying and what you're doing anyway, it is totally possible. And so one of the ways to do that, so like the hardest part at first seems to be, well, how do I find those companies that will pay me to do this for them? And so that can be tricky, but really it begins to happen naturally as it is that you put yourself out there. And what we mean by that is several ways. One is that you can sign up on some of the freelance platforms, which we'll link, like Upwork, in particular, Free Up, that's right.
Some of them might be application processes because maybe they vet quality, so you might want to start with something like Upwork
or
first.
LinkedIn, even LinkedIn.
Yeah, even
you
LinkedIn.
Can have that in your begin to add it to your profiles. So if even if you're not yet a social media manager, it's okay to call yourself a social media manager or social media. Let's see. What would be another
You might
term?
even if all you want to do is help people manage Facebook groups, you might even want to put in your Facebook bio that I help people manage Facebook
That's
groups.
Right.
And so if it's like that specific for you and that's what you want to focus on, you could do that as well.
That's right. So
Yeah.
So an example, like you managed a Facebook group for someone who had like a $2,000 course, and or they had a course for hundreds or thousands of dollars. They had several different ones, and so we won't mention names. But and you basically, they needed help with you moderating the comments and the conversation within the community.
They needed somebody to host the space because they were too busy doing what they do best, which was creating their course and their content and selling that and marketing that. And so they needed somebody to manage and maintain a level of professional conversation within a business group. And so the way I found most of my clients was through joining business groups and just helping people and just answering questions they had on topics that I happen to know about, and helping them form ideas of like, hey, you could do this on your Facebook page to generate engagement, or you could do that on your Pinterest or your blog or whatever it was. Just being there to just help. And so that is how a lot of people contact me and were like, hey, can you do that for us?
Yeah.
Because I think that's fantastic, but I don't have time to do any of that. I need to run my business, and I don't have time for this social media thing. So that's how I did gain several clients, and then also word of mouth or people we knew. I know you would know somebody, and they'd be like, hey, this person needs help with their marketing, and so I'd reach out. So a lot of it comes from being in either rooms or groups or communities and offering help on topics you know about. And so, and you might be thinking, well, I don't know marketing, so how do I do that? Well, if you like gardening, we have several people in our community that like gardening and are part of a lot of gardening groups, but you're noticing this absence of presence, or just you're noticing things that could make the group better but aren't being done, you might reach out to the admins and just ask, hey, and in the beginning, sometimes it's doing it a little bit for free, sometimes for just cheaper, like $5 an hour, $10 an hour, and just say, hey, do you want help managing this community? I know a lot about gardening. I will be able to help you moderate, the topics, the conversations, start conversations, answer members because I know this topic really well. That's one way that you can start just reaching out on the platforms you're already familiar with.
Yes, absolutely. And so for instance, we own, like as Devani said, we own a gardening page and website. The gardening page, Facebook page, has over 100,000 members. We have a corresponding Facebook group called Planting for Retirement. The Facebook page is Gardens All, for the website gardensall.com. And the Facebook page, the Facebook group, Planting for Retirement, has about 4,400 members in it. And right now, we are not paying anyone to manage that because for a number of reasons, the websites have been affected by algorithms that have reduced the income significantly to not allow us as yet to hire out those positions. But when the revenue turns around or improves in that regard, then we look forward to being able to pay people to do more of that for us. Right now, we have had kind and generous contributing volunteer admins and hosts. They call them moderators, as Devani said. And these are people that naturally chime in a lot and like helping people and love being a part of the group.
And are knowledgeable in the topic.
And are knowledgeable.
Which really helps. You
Yes.
don't have to be knowledgeable in marketing, but if you're at least knowledgeable in the topic that the group is about, that's a skill.
Yeah, because this isn't about, you're not going to be marketing and selling for them. It's called social media marketing because the presence of the company or brand on social media is an example of the new kind of marketing. It's where they're in the community, being a presence, in much the way that a law firm might sponsor a little league game, or a doctor's office might sponsor a marathon for cancer, or whatever it is. So social media now is also about being social on the social platforms, and as a company, as a brand. And a lot of times it's like they're not like, so like if we have a gardening website, our business is actually creating content and articles and interviewing people for that website. It isn't. We don't earn anything by running the Facebook page or the group. And so therefore, since but some places do, some companies do, some people, in order to belong to a certain group, you might have to pay to be a part of that membership.
I have a client who, they have a beauty company, and a lot of the people within their company, they sell via having people in their Facebook group, and that's their tool for selling the products. But that's not everybody. A lot of a lot of communities are more for talking about the interest.
Right.
So gardening.
Right. So like, things we might do. So like if someone asks a question in one of our groups, we might share an Amazon link that is an affiliate link. And if they go to Amazon and buy anything, then we might make some pocket change from that. But it definitely isn't, until you're really, really large, that in and of itself is definitely not, like a monetizing event worth counting on. May or may not even buy a cup of coffee kind of thing. But, everything that you do when you're building your brand online or building your business as a social media manager, if that's what it is, adds up. So along those lines, if you're, like we were talking about, if you're in a group anyway and you're enjoying chiming in, so we have Shannon Billings has been helping moderate our Planting for Retirement group. She's also in the I Create Daily group as a member. She and another one in the planting is Susan Carpenter, another is Jay Jackson. They are the people that were most contributing, and so they were invited to contribute as moderators in the Planting for Retirement group, and they have continued to do that to more or lesser degrees depending on their life circumstances and what's happening. For one of them, it ended up resulting in a paid position with one of Devani's clients, and that's how it works. Well, one thing you can be certain, whether it is that you are moderating or contributing, a lot of content comments help to members as just a participant. Or in the case of writers, writing, helping to write a contributing article for a website. One thing that's not yet paying writers, such as our gardening site, but one thing you can be sure, sometimes we're paying writers for some of our sites, so we do have that. But one thing you can be sure is that if you're in there contributing, you're going to be the first amongst the first to be invited for the paid positions when they open up, should you still be interested. So that's one of the things. And like, as Devani said, there are many people and many brands out there. Let's see. So imagine, like, we interviewed Dr. Pedersen. He is a doctor. He is a practicing doctor. On top of that, he has created amazing product lines of silver. We'll link to that podcast that are healing products. And he doesn't have time. Not that he is not interested, but he doesn't have time. It's just not practical for him to be in his social group on a regular basis interacting. And yet he has a social presence for his brand, and therefore he would need to hire or has paid people in there helping moderate. And he's just one of many, many examples. Writers, even some of the bigger artists who are successful artists already, start out moderating their own pages, start out contributing, creating all the content, and eventually need to outsource that so that, the chatting, and while you care a lot about your audience, it can't get in the way of you doing your business and making a living and doing the work that you're really there to do.
Yeah. But being a knowledgeable moderator in an area of interest that you're already, you already enjoy, you already are there for the conversation, it really helps, because then you are creating a little bit of income for yourself. And who knows, you might find a passion in doing that or for a while. But it also helps the business owner know that somebody knowledgeable within their community is being a knowledgeable voice, because that just helps their brand too. And of course, you'll probably get word of mouth recommendations if you ask, like, you provide somebody value and it really helps them, and they just want you to be a resource for others as well.
Right. So if you're interested in becoming a social media manager and you're not yet, here's some of the things you can do. We already mentioned that you can create a profile in some of the social freelancer platforms, and don't worry too much, in particular when it comes to social media service provider or manager, like a Facebook manager. We'll focus on that because you can learn what you need to know within an hour, a few hours at the most on a given day. Most of what you need to know, you already do. And that is, the subject matter. If you're a gardener, gardening. If you're a knitter, knitting. If you're an artist, art. And you enjoy interacting with people because you're already on a social platform. So you enjoy sharing and being in that conversation. And that's the biggest part of what social media management is. The other part, so it's about depending on the person that hires you, what they want you to do. The range of things is basically going through and moderating and making sure everyone's behaving themselves, that there's nobody being obnoxious or that needs to be banned, because nothing can turn a community sour more quickly than just having troublemakers. And there are people, for some strange reason, we probably all seen them or encountered them, who, like their entertainment and recreation seems to be to go around and,
leave harassing comments,
start fights and that sort of thing, and make negative comments for no reason to just anyone. So, and those people, they can just get banned. They can from a page or from a group. So that's a thing, but that needs to happen pretty quickly. And so that's an example of why it is that people and pages, especially the larger you get, need moderators, and community members helping with that.
And sometimes you need several.
Yes. So don't worry that you don't let it be like an overwhelming, like, I don't know how to be, I've never done marketing and I'm not a social media manager, for instance. Don't let that stop you, because really it is about having conversation. Now, we have in our audience a lot of, we have all ages, including a number of people who are baby boomers, as I am, and many of whom are at or near or already have retired, near that age already have. And they have more time, but they also have a lot of skills and knowledge and practice, usually at conversing, at writing, proper sentences, at spelling, and all kinds of things that are a part of social media management. That while many businesses can outsource a lot of their content, and many do outsource social media management. One of the things, for inexpensively, I mean, in the beginning, it's survival for small businesses and startups to be able to hire an outsourcer for $6 an hour kind of thing, to do that kind of thing. But it is hard to find someone who, when English is not the first language, who can do it well all the time.
Yeah.
So really, you just need to be able to, construct sentences and communicate, be good at communicating and enjoy communicating, helping people. And then you go in and chat. You go in and you, like, for instance, an example of some things that someone with our gardening site will do when it is we can hire a social media manager would be to go in and take the most recent articles and schedule those posts. We have a scheduler, or you can just put it on the page, so that now they're creating content on our Facebook page for people to interact with.
Well, they can add their gardening commentary because they know the topic.
Yeah, they can even initiate the concepts, right, depending. So there's just a whole, really exactly what you do will depend on what it is that person that you work for needs.
And the only difference between hosting a conversation for a business versus for yourself on your own profile or your own group or whatever, the only difference is you just respect the rules of the business that you're working with, or the group or community. Like, you just respect those rules, and you're the upkeeper of those rules and the conversation. So if a business doesn't like a specific topic to be taught, like if it's a gardening group but it's only focused on flowers, then you don't talk about the vegetable gardening, you talk about the flower gardening.
Yeah.
I mean, basic example, but it's just like, you just sort of like respect the rules of the house here, and it's the same. It's the same.
Exactly. Exactly. And we see a lot of, there are a lot of people who, the market and the economy is kind of odd. There are many people who are struggling, and there are many people who are thriving, and everything in between. But again, most people, even those who are retired comfortably, most of us are not at the place where we have more than we could ever need to do the things we really want to do, whether it's travel more freely, or to, buy the new car when you need it without worrying about a budget, whatever it may be. Or even worse, there are people who are really struggling, and yet we see them spending a lot of time on social media chatting. So with that time, instead, you could be, and again, we love seeing you on our social platforms, as we've talked about before. So in some ways, we're shooting ourselves in the foot by, saying things like that, because we don't want to discourage you from sharing and being a part of our communities and our groups and our Facebook pages, etc. We love seeing you there, and that's what helps those communities really thrive. But first, you need to thrive. And if it is that you're spending time chatting on social media, or even complaining on social media, or whatever it may be, versus developing your skills and making the connections that can help you get ahead, then that's where you need to be focusing your time. So then, if, let's say that you're interested in knitting, we used that example earlier, then you probably already belong to some knitting groups, but I would search knitting groups and knitting pages, and then join the ones, like there are some people, we mentioned this actually to Jean at one point, and she was so unfamiliar with Facebook that, and it just brings to mind that she's not alone. There are many people who are not aware of the differences between a page, a group, and a profile. So would you like to share that pretty briefly?
Sure. So a profile is your profile. You can accept friends requests, and you can post your stuff. It's you. It's who you are on the internet. Like,
Your persona.
Your persona on the internet. It's yours. You own it. You can post stuff. You can delete stuff. It's all yours. A page is a business listing. And this is where it gets a little bit complicated because not every page is attached to a business. Some people just start a page because they want to start a page and they want to post stuff about a specific topic, but they don't have like a website or a business or a shop or a store associated. They just want a place to publish work about an interest topic without their name necessarily having to be attached to it. That's a page, and you like a page, so or you can follow a page. And the easy way to tell between a profile and a page is a profile, you have to do a friend request. And a page, you can click the like button and it's public content. So that's that. And then groups are interest communities. So like I Create Daily for Creators is our I Create Daily group on Facebook for people interested in consistent daily creating. Or business people who want an accountability group to check in with and daily motivation. That is our group. But there's tons of different groups. There's groups about canning, groups about kombucha making, groups about gardening, crafts, painting, homesteading.
We just interviewed Tara Jacobson. She has a group about
for Etsy selling. So there's whatever topic you can think of, there's likely a group for that topic. And it can be as niche as my brother is part of a group about lab rotties. They're Labrador and Rottweiler mixes, and everybody just shares about their dogs.
He has a website.
And he has a website.
labrotty.com.
Yeah, and so there's groups all under the sun about all sorts of different topics. But those are the differences. It's like a community, you as a person, and then a business page.
Okay, so you as a person, people can friend you and you can friend others if it's their personal profile. Business pages, it is you like it or not, like or unlike if you don't want to still be connected to them. And then groups are you join or unjoin. So those are the options.
Friends, likes, and joins.
Friends, likes, and joins for
personal,
business and or nonprofit, whatever the pages or groups. And groups.
And there's nuances in between, but that's the simple. And don't confuse you. Those are the simple.
Yeah, and all kinds of purposes of groups. Like many businesses create pages and groups in order to drive traffic to their business in some fashion.
Or create a chat community.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people in the e-commerce space, we've heard that a lot of people in the e-commerce space use their groups to run challenges. We've run challenges through I Create Daily, and a lot of other product brands will do that as well. They'll host a challenge, and part of the challenge is like, oh, you need our product as well. For part of the challenge, there's fitness groups,
right? And it's part of, as a brand, building your presence online. Because if people are interested in your brand, then they're going to be interested at some point. If they're interested in your topic and can contribute their interest and share with on that topic, and they also might end up being customers of whatever it is you're offering, which is kind of the reason that brands are on Facebook and social media and that sort of thing. What was the thing I was going to say? Oh, okay. So back to the thing of finding a page, finding places that you can begin to make your presence known and visible. So let's say that if you're interested in knitting, then you go and search knitting groups, knitting pages, and see which ones are the largest. When I say largest, again, remember that some of the smaller groups, depending on your area of interest, even some of the smaller groups or pages might be able to actually pay social media managers. So the best example that comes readily to mind is coaches. There are coaches that have high price programs, and as a result, their audience of prospective customers and clients may be small or smallish, because again, it's a higher ticket item, or because like a coach can only see so many people in a year. So it might be a smaller group, and yet because their program is a higher ticket item, they can afford to pay a social media manager. If they're earning $100 an hour, or $50 an hour, or $200 or $1,000, whatever it may be, then it's pretty easy for them to pay $10, $15, $20, $50 an hour to do social media management, which brings us to the rates. And the rates that people pay vary by the brand, by the economy, the wealth of the brand relative to the return on the investment of what they sell. But one
and
thing,
skill level.
and the skill level of a, so here's an example. So Devani morphed from being just a social media manager to also being a social media strategist and consultant. And here's one of the ways that manifested just the other week, last week, where a prospective client, was referred to her by another person who knew her, was either a former client or another acquaintance in the social arena. And they thought they needed her as a social media manager. And upon hearing about their scenario and the fact that they actually already had a team, instead she gave them a few recommendations of things that they could tweak to improve upon it right away. And then for them to check with their team and get, once those things got going, to identify what else they needed. And if they needed, then they could consult with her for a consultation fee.
And so I think what's really important about that too is a lot of times it's just knowing how to help the person in the right way. It's not always, and so you hear a lot of business people like, oh, just show up and help people, and you might think in your head like, okay, but like just randomly chatting people up on the internet and answering their questions doesn't result in income. I need to make an income, I need to generate money. But a lot of times just pointing somebody in the right direction, even if hiring you isn't the right direction, people remember stuff like that. They might refer you to other people who do need you and can hire you and can pay you. And so the biggest thing that I would recommend is, if you start on a lower end of offering like $5 to $10 an hour. I paid somebody $10 an hour to help me manage another client's Facebook page that was large, and I just couldn't. It made more sense because they knew more about the topic than I did, and so it made more sense for me to hire them and pay them to manage the conversation there. And so that can happen. And if you've never done it before, you're not going to start right off the bat being, $50 to $75 an hour. But you can gain a lot of skill in marketing and conversation hosting with clients who are willing to pay $5 to $10 an hour. You can be that person and form those relationships and get that word of mouth and that skill that you need to then charge more later on for other businesses.
And when we say $5, so that basically that's usually for foreign outsourcers. We wouldn't recommend that you start for less than $10, and $10 is really reasonable. And how much time would it take? Probably an hour a day. So on average, let's say maybe 10 hours a week. In which case you could make $100 a week, $400 extra a month, just doing what you're probably spending that same amount of time on social media doing anyway.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things we really like to encourage with, one of the reasons that the slogan for I Create Daily is for creators serious about their work, or creators serious about their art, is because the kind of concept that creators, we just want to create, that's like our sweet spot. But when it is that we can create or converse with more intention, more intentionality, and awareness and consciousness, then the more we can elevate our lives and that of others by virtue of, like in this case, monetizing something that you enjoy doing anyway. Like, why not? Because then that frees you up to do more of the things that you really want to do.
And we've talked a lot about Facebook groups because a lot of our community is in a Facebook group and they're good at that. And we notice your work. We notice what you guys do and your interests. So we keep up to date so that we know we can talk about topics that we think are of interest and will help you. But also, this can apply to any social media platform you're on. Anybody you follow on any other platforms, even if they don't have a group within that platform, like Instagram isn't really a place where you have a group. But if you're on Instagram regularly and you follow a brand or a business or somebody who obviously needs some help with their social media, maybe they're not consistent, you just message them and say, hey, I follow you, I like your work, and I can help you be more consistent on this platform. And so yeah, those same principles can work on whatever platform you like and you enjoy.
Yes, and so if it is that, let's say that you get, okay, so back to the knitting example, let's say that you join a knitting group and, and let's say that there are 100,000 sites and you're making comments, you're observing the posts that the admins of the group make or the owner of this page makes, and you're making comments, and then you make comments and contributions to other people that comment, and people will be saying things like, thank you, that was so helpful, and all those kinds of things. But you're in there every day making some comments and kind of in a consistent manner. The owner and admins of the page are going to be thanking you. They're going to recognize you. They will remember your name and be so grateful that you're there. And then they may ask you. Chances are, a lot of times, like Devani was saying, her clients, most of them came by virtue of them approaching her by observing her presence and contribution in the groups and pages where she was posting, just as a contributor of the audience, just as an audience member.
And a lot of it wasn't even me posting in their groups. I was just responding to other people in their groups who needed help.
Questions, yeah.
And they had questions, and it's just like right time, right moment. I saw your question, and you can even decide that you block out like an hour a day to go through the top groups that you enjoy the most on interests that you enjoy the most. And that might be a good like starting off checklist. Like, what are your top like 3 or 4 interests? 1 or 2 interests, whatever. What are your top interests? What are the groups you're part of or can join? And how can you block off time each day to have a consistent presence in those groups so that people already see, like the admins notice who's consistent. And many admins will notice that. They will notice these are the consistent names. And now it makes it even easier because Facebook has badges now in groups that are like top contributor, top fan, top whatever. And so it's very obvious these days who is engaged. And so if you can be a consistent presence, a lot of times, and just a helpful, consistent presence that's uplifting, positive, and adds value to their conversations, people notice that.
Yeah, and so you'll be amongst the first who they invite, and you can also message, since you're a part of the group and you contribute, and you're a known entity there. You can also, after a while, maybe a few weeks or a month or so of chiming in and contributing, you can always then send them a private message and just say, hey, if you're ever looking to hire a social media manager, I would be interested. And now, first of all, they're gonna be kind and courteous because you're a member of their audience after all. And hopefully they would anyway, because they're good human beings, or else you wouldn't want to be working with them. But so then let's say that you get hired. Somebody says, oh my gosh, I've been needing to hire someone, I just haven't had the time. So I would love to do it. My rate is for the first week is $10 an hour to make sure that we're a good fit for each other. And I'm thinking 10 hours a week. How does that sound for you? For me to do 1 week at, let's say 10, that's $2, or you could even say for 5 hours. But if you did 10 hours a week, that's 2 hours a day. You could come in like in the morning, in the evening. So I'll come in the morning for an hour, or whatever time of day works best for you and them to mutually decide upon. Usually most pages, it can be flexible, but there are algorithms where there are times when they're more active, when their audience is more active, and that would be a good time so you can coordinate with them.
And if you're already a fan of that group and you're regularly contributing, if you can include like, hey, I noticed that these are your busiest times, it really helped. That one little noticing of like, hey, I noticed that in your group the busiest times are between this and this, and I can help you manage all that. I can help you manage the conversation, blah, 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 approve members, whatever. That is like, oh, wow. It really tells them that you actually care about the community you're in, which is what they want, what they need.
Right.
Somebody
Absolutely.
who cares about the community.
Right. And have ideas. Like if you've had, like you mentioned earlier, that by being in there as a member and participant, you're able to see what some of the people that are participating are interested in. You're able to observe things that you would like to see more or less of within the group, and those are the things that you can contribute positively over time. So let's say that you're on this trial period, and let's say that they said, yes, oh my gosh, yes, when can you start? And then you can say, oh, I can start tomorrow. And then you're like, panic, what do I do? Like if you're in our audience or Facebook group and you're hearing this, contact us. If you have any questions, we will be totally happy to get you started on first, second, third kind of thing. Because most everything else the only other few things would be like what to do once you're in the back end, what kind of conversations. If you get stuck at any point, then just let us know, because we want to see you thrive and succeed.
Yep. That's a good note to end on, I think. And I guess the top 3 takeaways for somebody listening to this would be assess your top interests. Make sure you're part of one. Assess your top interests. See the groups you're already in or could join that are see the groups or social profiles that you already follow or are a community of. And then 3, be active
Yes.
and reach out, do the initial reach out. And let me just say this now, your initial reach out is always sometimes scary.
Yeah.
It's always nerve-wracking the first time.
But it doesn't have to be.
But it doesn't need, it's like one message and it's gone.
Yeah,
and they see it or they don't.
And the thing about that is, remember, rejection just means, no is just one step closer to the next yes, the next yes. And before you ask them, it was already no because you weren't working for them. So if you ask them, they say no, then you're still at the same place you were before. And so it's all good. It's all okay. And then it gets easier as you go.
And it also, sometimes it means no, not now. Not no, never.
Right.
A lot of times. I've had a lot of back and forth and months and back and forth and blah, blah, blah. And then finally they were like, look, I can't do this. I need your help.
Yeah. And before we go, I remembered one other example of a group or a page to look at. Notice that when you go into these larger pages and groups that you're interested in. So again, we mentioned what if it was knitting, what if it was like Shannon, for instance, is interested in bees. And so what if it was beekeeping or even a honey company? What if it was a honey company? Who knows? It could be, or it could be a company that's selling beehives. It could be anything, related to the concept. Or what if you go into that group or page that you're interested in and you observe that the admins and the owner are not very present. And especially the larger the page. Generally what that means is, again, with bootstrap or small entrepreneurs, medium-sized businesses, etc., a lot of times it's just they simply haven't been able to get to it, or they may not know that it's important. They may not yet know that it's important enough. So here's a whole other example. Let's say that you're interested in fixing cars, and you notice that this car auto parts website or Facebook page rather has a lot of people asking about different things about parts, but there's not no response, and yet it's a large page and a large following. Maybe people are interested in racing, whatever
there's
it is.
A lot of pages.
Yeah, and whether it's cars or whether it's soap making or whether it's there's always going to be something in some brand out there where they've grown out of themselves, so to speak. They've grown out of their britches is what I was going to say. It's like they've grown too big for they've outgrown themselves.
Time.
Thank you. They don't have time. Yeah. You don't have to have a clever way of saying the obvious, right? Thank you. Yeah. They don't have time and they need your help. And so then that's another way you can contact them. Is a lot of times in that case, you may send them a message that they may not see right away. So just keep sending a message. Just say, hey, I was in your group this week and I posted, and I know that noticed that you guys hadn't posted since XYZ. I noticed, let's say this Wednesday, and you haven't posted since Monday. I saw this article on your website and I thought it was such a great article. So, so could I post it, or could you post this on your page, or would you like me to post it and share it for you?
Yeah.
Those are the kind of ways that you can begin to take initiative. And again, it's worth it if it's something you really are interested in anyway.
I think that's the thing, persistence.
Yes, persistence, consistency, and just being present and showing up. So these days, Gary Vaynerchuk always calls it the thank you economy. That's one of the titles of one of his book. So when it comes,
his favorite book
is his
most underrated book.
Yes, of all of them,
and probably the best.
And
one of the best.
And the concept is basically you give first, and you just keep doing and contributing, and people will notice, and then you will become the go-to person.
And it does take time, but you're going to be passing the time anyway.
And you're going to be
and you're probably going to be talking in their communities anyway.
Right. So go for it, and let us know if you have any questions.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks so much for joining us for the I Create Daily podcast. Please let us know what creatives you would like us to interview and what topics you would be interested in hearing more about.
And if you enjoyed this show, please leave a review on iTunes. We value your feedback. We read all the reviews, and it just helps us get the word out on the I Create Daily podcast. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.